I know what you're thinking. What in the gosh darn is Bits and Bombs? Bits and Bombs is a podcast deep diving into what it takes to do stand-up from a different comedian every episode. Follow new open micer Peter Doms in his journey to be an okay comic.
Sammy Al-Badri.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah.
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
That's very good to hear.
Yeah, sick. So when was your first gig?
First gig, 2018. It was on a cruise ship.
On a cruise ship?
Yeah, I was 15. Yeah, that sounds about right. I was 15, and it was like a comedy cruise where the gimmick is like every night the entertainment is a comedian from the Sit Down Comedy Club. And on the final day, they do like a gong show where passengers can get up and try stand-up. And I did that, and I won the competition.
Oh, sick.
And then I think it was Megan, actually, from Sit Down, was like, that was great. If comedy's something you're interested in, like, you should join this message board, and, like, this is what Class Clowns is, where they, like, find young talent and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, cool, I guess I do stand-up now.
Yeah,
and that's where we are.
Yeah, cool. So, wait, a comedy cruise, so the whole draw to it was stand-up?
Yeah, it was like 3 days or something, and it was like...
Oh.
Yeah, it's like my mum and I went on it because, like, we both fucking love comedy. Like, Mum's always loved comedy.
Yeah.
And so she was like, oh, this will be fun. And we got on the cruise and then realised that the comedy shows are all 18 plus.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you that before you buy the tickets.
Uh-huh.
So we rock up for the first night to watch a show. And the secchi's like, how old are you? I was like, oh, I'm 15. And he's like, nah, mate. I'm like, fuck. And so we go to leave. And then he's like, wait, guys, come back. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, come on in.
Oh,
and so then every night we just had to look for which door that security guard was on.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, it was pretty sick.
That's cool. Because at that point, it's just like, you're with a guardian.
Yeah,
like
I was with my mum.
Yeah, like, I guess maybe bar stuff. Maybe like there's like a bar there. I don't know. It's so weird that that's like restricted to...
Until I was 18, I couldn't do gigs without my mum there because I wasn't allowed in without a guardian.
Okay.
Yeah, mum would just be like sitting at the comics table.
Just riffing,
for a while.
Sick.
Like, and then I'll invite her to like a good gig, like a gig that's worth seeing.
Yeah.
You know, something in Toowoomba maybe. Mm-hmm. And the comics will be like, is that Sammy's mum? Sammy's mum! Like it's... Yeah. She's like, she'll shit on open micers and stuff like that. Awesome. Like she's in.
Hell yeah, she's in. So, I guess for you, like, stand-up's always been a thing that you've, like, watched and been passionate for, like, just loved?
Yeah, always watched stand-up.
Yeah. Cool. So was going into the cruise, did you think you would do stand-up?
No.
No?
No, I didn't know about that. I was just like, oh, this will be fun to go watch shows every night.
Yeah.
And then, on the first day, they were like, and the gong show on the final day. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll go watch that. And then I was like, nah, fuck it. I'll do it. I don't care. It'll be fun. I want to try it. And for like about a year up to that point, I was like, man, imagine doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Imagine doing... But I was like, I didn't know what an open mic was. I was like, I don't even know how you would do comedy. I don't know how you would even get into it.
Yeah.
So there's way cheaper options than going on a cruise.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to do that at all. But... yeah, and now we're here.
And now we're here.
That's it.
Open mics and stuff. Yeah. Cool. So is there anyone from that cruise that you kind of like have seen around that gong show in particular that you've seen around the scene?
Real deep cut. Jeremy West was competing. You wouldn't know who he is. He stopped doing stand-up, I think, before COVID, and now he's like a life coach, crypto guy.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Who was on there? Mark McConville was one of the judges.
Yep.
Jacques Barrett, who I like gig with heaps and always is like great to run into. He was there. Josh Thomas. No, not Josh Thomas. Josh Earl.
Oh, okay,
was like, these were like the booked comedians. And I've like run into Josh a few times, and Colin Lane was on there, and I've obviously never met Colin Lane since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I like see Jacques heaps, and it's like great to like. Cause he's like, I remember when you were an infant. And
Yeah.
I started this. He's like, this is because of me.
Yeah.
Everything you have.
Were there any other like kind of younger comedians around? Because by what I've heard from other people too, like you're kind of like the one kind of guy that was like the kid that was like around the scene. Like it doesn't seem very common to have like people that are like 15, 16 doing stand up.
Yeah, I assumed I would run into another one like when I was still in school, but yeah, none. And then there was this one girl who I met at Class Clowns. Her name's Emma. You might have Emma Armitage.
Yeah, I was at a gig with her last night actually.
She did a few gigs when she was younger. But yeah, that's like the only other young person I met. I know like over in Perth, well, she's in Melbourne now, but like Frankie Rosethorn started when she was like 16 or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're like the same age, but we were on opposite sides of the country. Like she was the only other young person I knew of. But yeah, like even still, I think the youngest people on the scene are like my age, but they've only been doing stand up like a year.
Yeah.
Which is like way more reasonable. Like,
yeah,
I should have been doing homework instead of driving to Brisbane to do 5 minutes. Like, yeah.
Homework book empty, but joke book full type stuff.
Overflowing, brother.
So with Class Clowns, because that's like an underage, like
it's like
kind
raw
of
for high
like
school kids.
Yeah. So how many gigs did you do before you kind of competed in that?
I can like actually see. Hang on, give me 1 second. I would guess like 30, but I can get you an exact number. Hang on.
Yeah, with that, you'd probably see that there's...
Sit down, rehab. Where are we up to? Oh, this is great content.
Yeah. No. Because you'd probably see that there's like doing Class Clowns, there'd be a lot of people that would be doing it for like the first time.
Oh, yeah. Heaps of just like drama kids and stuff doing it for the first time. Sorry. I actually can't find it. Yeah, I don't know. I've probably done like 20 gigs or something by the time. So I had like an actual workshopped 5.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was crazy. Who was it? Steph Tisdall was the judge because they'd run like a workshop and stuff where like all the kids can get up and try their set. And then the judge, host, comedian, like gives notes.
Yeah.
And yeah, Steph Tisdall was the judge. And I'd like gigged with her. And she was like, whoa, what the fuck? What are you doing here?
That's fun. Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm 15. And she was like, yeah, no, like this is where you should be. You shouldn't have been at that bar on Sunday. This makes more sense. But
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, Mel was like did the state finals or something. And like, yeah, we'd gig together at that point. And she was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess so. That makes sense. And stuff like that.
How far did you get with the Class Clowns?
I got state finals both times, I think.
Oh, yeah, sick.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's like, yeah, it's the same as Raw. Like, if you get through the States, you go to Melbourne for nationals. But yeah, I did, because I only did it 2 years, because then I had to do Raw the next year.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got state finals. So I wasn't funny enough, which is what that means if you don't get through Raw.
That's the...
If you lose a competition, it means you're not funny.
Yeah.
And you're better off quitting.
Yeah, because the competition is what the judges say is final. Yeah. And if you don't get through...
Oh, you crushed? How many out of 10, though? What's the feedback sheet say?
Yeah, did you put the mic stand aside?
Yes.
Is it in front of you or is it behind you? Because that's crucial.
Yeah.
But, yeah, okay. So pretty much you did the cruise and then did you jump straight into gigs after the cruise?
I think the second gig I did was like my school talent show. Yeah. And then, yeah, I did like open mics from there. And just like, yeah, in Brisbane. And there was like one open mic at a cafe in Toowoomba, but it was like a music open mic. But the guy who ran it also did stand-up. So he would host it as a comedy open mic, but then bring on musicians.
Oh.
and he would let me do stand up, and it was just the weirdest vibe. It was like so strange.
Yeah.
Like 4 in the afternoon in Toowoomba. Like
So yeah, because you're from Toowoomba.
yeah.
So you would have been not only like going with your mum to gigs, but going to Brisbane from Toowoomba. Right?
Yeah, my mum's a fucking trooper.
That's
She would,
fucking
like,
that's so
she would
hectic.
drive me
Yeah.
to Brisbane so I could do these spots, and then drive me back. And like, yeah, I'd pay for petrol and
Yeah.
like stuff like that. Like, yeah, when I finally got my P's, she was like, "Fucking finally!" Like, fuck off. Like, I'm done.
Were there any like awkward like car ride homes like after bombing or whatever? Just like, yep.
I remember one time, so specifically, a gig that doesn't run anymore, the Waterloo Tavern.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
classic.
that sounds about right. And bombing so hard. And I was just like, I'm fucking never going back. Like, I was so angry.
Yeah.
I was so upset. I was like, I'm never doing that gig again. Fuck that guy. Fuck the guy who books it. I can't believe that. What a terrible room. They were all talking. I'm never doing that gig ever again. I hate it. I hate it. And
Yeah.
Mum was like, well, maybe next time you could try this and try this. And I was like, yeah. And then if that guy does that again, I can say this and I can say this and I'll fucking like...
Yeah, yeah.
And so then I messaged the guy and was like, hey man, can I do the next one? And he was like, yeah, of course you can. Like, nobody else wants to do this gig. And then I went back and had like a decent gig. But yeah, there were a few drives home where I was just like, I'd just sit in silence. I'm like, sorry, Mum, I need to brew. I'm like, I'm not happy with what just happened there.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the lift. So thank you for coming, but I need to unpack what just happened to me.
Yeah.
Like,
So when you said if he says that, and that, like, were they like heckles and
it
stuff?
wasn't really heckles, but people just like calling out things
Yeah.
and interrupting and, you know, a shit
Yeah.
open mic. It was on a Friday, so like everyone was actually drunk and it was
Yeah.
like, it was everyone's like local. And so
Yeah.
they were just like, well, I come here every week, so fuck you
Yeah.
doing your little thing. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, fair. It was a free comedy night where nobody there came for comedy. Like,
Those situations are always tough because it's like if they're talking, it's like, oh yeah, I'm talking while you're talking because you like, you know, like you come
Yeah.
here for dinner.
I came here
and
to
didn't
have a
expect-
drink with my friends. I
Yeah,
didn't
and
come
there's
here
a
to watch
cunt on
comedy.
stage and like, so when people like talking during my sets at those gigs, I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
Fair
like
play, brother.
fair play, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, completely.
so. Actually, have you ever had a situation where you've like, oh, I should have said this like on stage, and
Oh.
then you went back and you're like, finally, they've said that thing, so I can like,
Oh yeah, this happened like last night. I was like, yeah. And now that I think about this, I actually could have been using this line for years. Ages ago, someone like yelled out, and they were wearing like TNs, like the sneakers.
yeah,
And afterwards, I was like, oh, this guy came wearing his best TNs, but his worst personality or something like that.
yeah,
And then I did that last night, and I was like, oh, "There's this guy who's yelled out wearing TNs. I get to say this line." And I was like, "Oh, I could actually just say that anytime someone calls out.
yeah.
You've come out wearing your best maroon shirt and your worst
Yeah,
personality."
you can
Like, it
kind of
actually-
adjust the. It's
It
very,
actually doesn't
it's very-
matter. I can say that for anything. Like it's
But you just have a beef with TNs in particular.
Yeah, but when I thought of the gag, the guy was wearing TNs, and so I just never. It like literally, as soon as I said the line, I was like, I could have been saying this.
Yeah, this could be a default.
This could have been my like get out of jail free.
Yeah.
Just throw that so I can move on for years. Like
Yeah.
that's why did I wait for this one specific time?
Yeah, I had a thing. I did a gig once, and someone just like said out loud, like, "Oh, that's funny," and then afterwards, I think a little bit after, I was like, "Oh, I could have said then laugh,"
Yeah.
and
yeah.
then it happened. Then that thing, someone said that exact same thing again, and then I said, then laugh, and the crowd loved it. But then that one guy that said this is funny just crossed arms at the front of the gig, like for the rest of my set. I'm like,
fucking
I didn't mean to ruin your night, brother.
Yeah, that's great. How good when you're like, if that ever happens again, I've got the line.
Yeah, I've got the line.
And then it happens again and it bombs and you're like, oh Whoa, but I prepared this.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this for months.
Yeah,
The thing happened.
it's kind of like when you go on, when you have like you see something happen, or you kind of have like going on stage with a joke that you kind of just thought of before going on. You're like, oh, this is like in the moment and it'll be funny.
Yeah,
this is
about the room.
Yeah, like
something the last guy said.
yeah, like Billy Darcy was emceeing like a gong show type thing, and I was just like, oh, I look like his mugshot or whatever, and like, oh, this is like a before and after type thing, something like that, like just nothing, and I was like, oh fuck, and then you like start on a really awkward kind of like you fucked up your first joke, so now you're just trying to scurry back from that, and it's
That
just like
also happened last night at this gig. Nick was emceeing, and he has this joke about his 19-year-old cousin asking him for advice about this like awkward thing.
Mm-hmm.
The joke's not about his cousin. The joke's about me. And I got up and just decided to tell the audience that.
yeah.
And it just got nothing. They just looked at me like, oh, that was you. And then I had to be like, oh, I'm not as funny as I hoped it would be. All right. Just like move on so quickly. Anyway, guys, what's the deal with like just fucking so quick? Like, get out of this.
So yeah, after like, I guess like during your high school years, doing stand up and stuff, how did, I guess, like, did getting out of school and getting your license especially, like, did it kind of kick up the gigs and things like that, or?
A little bit. I remember getting home from formal. Like, sorry, I turned 18 like a few weeks before I graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, fuck, I'm not a kid anymore. But I'm still in high school. So that's my point of difference. I'm still in high school. And then I got home from formal. And I graduated earlier that day. I got home. I got to my room. I got out of my suit. And I just laid on my bed and I was like, fuck, what now? I don't have a point of difference anymore.
Oh.
I'm not niche. I'm just like a young straight guy doing stand-up.
I'm like the rest of them.
It's like, fuck, am I still going to get booked? Are people going to put me online? Like, I don't know if I'm actually funny or if I just crush because the MC goes, this guy, he's a little child and he's here with his mum because he's got school tomorrow. Like, is that why I'm doing well? I had this like actually huge like existential crisis of like, fuck, I guess this is where we find out if I'm actually funny or not. Like it was
fuck, like just you straight like just as soon as you graduate, you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not in high school anymore. I'm not a kid anymore. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
What I hope my jokes are like actually good enough. Like I hope I'm actually doing well on my own merit and not just because it's like this is a cool little diversity quota to be like amongst all these straight white guys, here's one that's younger. Like yeah, I was like actually really like shaken and I was like, fuck.
How'd you come back from that? Like,
well, I mean, I had a gig coming up, so I was like, guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Like, I went fine, and I was like, all right, let's just see what happens. Like, if I fall off, I fall off. If I stay strong, then great. Like, that's what happens. I had a good run. Like, but yeah, I remember being like so nervous before that first gig after graduating, where I was like, man, I don't have a gimmick. I don't really do race material, so like, I don't have a thing. Yeah. So it turns out you actually don't need a gimmick or a thing. Like, if your jokes are good, you'll do well. Like, it's fine.
Did you find that suddenly you had material that wasn't really suited to you like high school type material or things that was kind of addressing your age that you're like, I can't actually really use this anymore?
Well, a lot of that stuff, it's like, it still works as like just being a young person. And so I just stopped saying, I'm 16, so... And now I say, I'm 21, so...
Yeah.
And I didn't really have any jokes about school. But when I was writing these jokes about going to school and stuff, like I was writing them with the intention to tell them to adults. So it wasn't ever really relatable to young people. Like for ages, anytime there was a young crowd... sorry. I would like... do pretty bad when the crowd was like early 20s. I wouldn't do very well because I was like tuned to trying to make older people laugh, like 30, like early 30s, 40s, that kind of stuff. And so like young crowds were really daunting to me. People closer to my age was like more of a challenge because I was writing, trying to get people much older than me to laugh. And so it was just like recalibrating everything and like, okay, well, I'm an adult now, so I can actually somewhat relate to these people. So I don't have to kind of overwrite in this aspect. I can just write what I think is funny now. Yeah. Sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't.
Yeah. It's really interesting with you two having started so young, from like 15 to now you're like 21, right?
Yeah.
Like have you seen like kind of, you've almost documented like yourself like growing up and maturing like in jokes, right? Would that?
Yeah, a little bit. Like you go from like literally first jokes being about like, I just got my L's and like doing jokes about that, and now it's like sex. Like,
yeah.
That kind of stuff. Like,
oh, my bitch wife.
Yeah, the kids. I hate them. But yeah, they're so ungrateful. That kind of stuff. It is kind of interesting to see like, oh yeah, there's the progression of like, I'm older now, so I talk about these things. It's like kind of fun. But also like, oh, I'm older and I still talk about those things. Wow. Like, where's the maturity, bro?
Yeah. So then, I guess then from that going into out of school, like, how did like the progression in the comedy kind of go from there? Like, did you go like you know how you said about having that like little existential crisis? Was that because like the focus was always to have a career as like a stand-up as well? Like it was probably tied to that. Like when you go out of school, like, oh, what am I going to do for work and all those things?
Yeah, that's true. That's probably a good point. Well, in school, I wanted to be like a chef, and then for a little bit, I was like, oh, I could probably do law. And then it was always like kind of in that world. Maybe a teacher, like a drama teacher, a chef, lawyer. Like that's kind of the cycle of what I would flip between. But chef was what I was like leaning towards. And then I started doing stand-up, and I was like, oh, that's way more fun. Than being a chef.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, this is just a hobby. I want to be a chef. And then I got to year 12 and I was like, well, I didn't even do an apprenticeship and gigs are going pretty well. So I guess maybe I can just be a comedian. And so, yeah, I finished school and I was like, fuck. Like, I don't know how to do it. I didn't get an ATAR. I can't go to uni. Like, I have a QCE, so let's just hope that comedy works out. And then I realized 1 year later, it's like, oh, it actually doesn't matter what your ATAR is. You have to prove that you can like count to 10 and then you can get the equivalency and do a degree anyway. Like
that's what I did. I like always thought I was going to be a tradie and then was like, oh, I hate this. Like in grade 11 and 12. And then out of school, I just did like a bridging course that got me into a degree.
Yeah, exactly.
So like it's so,
I was like, when I realized that the ATAR is only like for 1 year, I was like, oh, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Man, kids fucking like stress themselves so much over that shit too.
Yeah.
And they put so much pressure on it. Like where it is like, oh, it doesn't really matter. You can just go back and
have
later
1 year off.
And I feel like it should be encouraged more to have 1 year off because
did you go to uni?
I did like a few years after graduating. I did like a digital media degree.
Okay.
A bachelor.
I was going to say, very funny if it's two guys who didn't go to uni going, uni's fucking dumb, eh? Uni's fucking stupid. Why would you go?
The education system is a scam.
It's all about real world hands-on experience.
Yeah, it's all about
two guys who have none.
Open mics.
Yeah. Like, okay, that's good that one of us has been to uni. But yeah, I don't know. There's like, the idea of going to uni is always there.
Yeah. And
it's
I took like a year off and I took maybe 2 years off, and having that made me kind of like make the decision a lot better. Like the amount of people I knew that went out of school straight into uni and then just drop that degree so quickly.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's like...
And I went to school with people who are onto like their third degree. Like, like they've started and dropped out of 2 others, and they're like, fuck, I guess I'll be a support teacher.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I think you haven't done anything other than going to school for 20 years now.
Yeah.
You actually don't know what you're passionate about or what you enjoy or what you like. Like, maybe just fucking take a break. Like, do a shit job that you hate that makes like decent money, and then take some time off and travel and do things you enjoy and find what you actually want to do. Like,
because when you're literally like 16, 17, like a dumb kid, then being like, oh, this is what I'm going to do for the like rest of my life, or this is like the direction I want my life to go. It's like, that's so young to choose. And some people it does work out.
Oh, yeah.
And that's great. But like, I don't know. It's... The
education
we've turned into just like
it's such a dude bro conversation.
Try new supplements recently, dude.
I'm taking DMT and MMA is going great. So I met you when I first started. Like, it was like I think it was like I did my first gig like a week before. So you were really, really fresh.
Yeah, I was super fresh, and so I met you. You were opening for Luke Kidgell in Mackay. Yeah. So I guess we can kind of like go into like that tour and things like that too. Like, that would have been like a big thing for you as well. Yeah,
that tour was so fun and just like so informative, and like just learnt so much about not just like performing and like writing and being a comedian, but like the business side of it, because like Luke is so switched on, and like he's kind of offloaded as much as he can of the business stuff, but even when it was just like him and his girlfriend, it was like, fuck, they know what they're doing. Like this like blew my mind, because he sells lots of merch, like posters and shirts and hoodies and stuff, and I was like, what's the most profitable thing you sell? Like, it'd be the posters, right? Because you sell them for like $15 and you sign them, but signing them doesn't cost anything, and it's just paper, and they don't take up much space, and they don't weigh much. And he looked at me like I was an idiot, and he was like, it's the ticket. I was like, huh? And he's like, well, I just did the show. I didn't give them anything. I keep all of that money. I was like, oh, of course it is. Like, and now I haven't thought about that since I was 18. Fucking idiot for not realising. Of course that's the cheapest thing. But yeah, just like everything, he was like, because he does a lot of regional shows.
Yeah.
And he basically was like, if you put on a show in a shithole and market it well, people will go because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, man, like, that's so interesting. Like,
yeah, having been from that shithole, like, and places like
from
that.
Another shithole that he sold a lot of tickets from in Toowoomba.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I've been telling, like, people wanting to try, like, their hour shows and things, or, like, you know, start to do a little bit of, like looking at festivals, and also, like, look at the regional Queensland towns, too.
Yeah.
If you can market it well, like, I've been on some shows where it's been packed, and it's not to anyone with like a, you know, like a name necessarily, but they've just marketed it really well.
Of like, here's a thing that is happening.
Yeah, because you're not really competing with anything else, like, let alone comedy, but pretty much nothing else in those
just
towns.
Don't go when the footy's on. Like,
yeah, or like the V8s or whatever, if it's like Townsville and things like that. Like, just avoid sports events and you'll be fine.
Yeah, there is no like performance scene really in all of those places. So it's like, yeah, it's very interesting. Like, just being with Luke and his partner for, was it 2-3 weeks or something? We were gigging. It was like so interesting seeing like how a big show runs and like how a tour runs, and like getting that insight into someone who's like so many levels above you.
Yeah.
Kind of honestly too early. I was like 3 years in when I got that tour.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like so beneficial. I think I was like very grateful and very lucky that I got that opportunity. I think.
How did you do any like support kind of stuff before Luke Kidgell, or any opening kind of spots?
I don't think so. I met Luke because I'd been a fan of him for years.
Yeah.
So he just recognized my name from commenting and liking stuff and things like that. I'd been following him for years. And then I met him I went down to the comedy festival just to watch shows, and we had an actual conversation, and it was nice. And then I saw he was headlining a gig in Brisbane, and this was months in advance, and I messaged the promoter and I was like, hey man, I'm actually a huge fan of Luke. Can I please do a spot on that show? I would love. He was like, yeah, of course you can.
Oh, sick.
And I spent the whole night talking to Luke, and he was like, yeah, I'm about to announce my Queensland dates. And I was like, oh, bro, if you need someone to eat shit in Brisbane or Toowoomba for 5 minutes, let me know. I'd love to. And he was kind of like, yeah, man, yeah, I'll let you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got asked to do a last minute hour at Good Chat because they had a slot open up. And so he did that, and he got me to open for that. And so that was great. And I did well. And so then he was ready to do the actual tour, and he was going to fly his opener up from Melbourne to do the Queensland shows, but then Melbourne was in lockdown.
Yeah.
And he was like, fuck, I need an opener. And then I was working at a trampoline park in Toowoomba.
Yeah.
And got a message on Instagram saying, hey man, what's your phone number? Can I give you a call? And I was like, what?
Oh, fuck, that's sick.
And I sent him my number, and then I get a call from this unknown number. And I'm like, hello? And he's like, hey man, it's Luke. Is this a bad time? And I'm at work. I'm on the trampolines. And I'm like, no man, this is good.
It's pretty good.
Happening? I was like, yeah, no man, I can talk. And he was like, do you have much coming up in the next 3 weeks? I was like, not really. And he was like, yeah, great. I want to fly you up to Cairns because I need an opener. So I'll fly you up, pay for your accommodation and your travel. And yeah, I just need you to open for all the shows, and we'll drive you back down to Toowoomba. And I was like, yeah, of course, I'd love to. That'd be amazing. And I was like, fuck, I need to go ask for 3 weeks off now. I just went into the office. I was like, hey man, I can't come in next week. And he was like, why? And I was like, it's a long story.
That's sick. It really shows that it helps to just because so many people are afraid to even ask the question of and putting themselves out there. So it doesn't hurt to kind of take the worst thing you hear is a no.
Exactly. The worst you can get is a no. But also with that, it's be mindful in what you're asking for.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
I didn't say to him hey man, hit me up. I'd love to do 20 minutes before all your shows.
Yeah. My
fee's around this much, so see if you can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Come in acting like I would get the best role. I was like, I genuinely would love to open for you in Toowoomba in the home crowd. That'd be awesome, even if it was just for 5. And then he saw me do well and realised that it kind of makes sense to have a young opener for his crowd.
Yep.
Of very young people. It was just very cool.
Yeah, sweet. And you actually, I think you've talked about it on other stuff before. You got in trouble on that tour, didn't you, with a hotel?
Oh, fuck me.
No, all right, we don't have to go into it.
It's on Instagram.
It's on it, yeah.
I got him kicked out of his Airbnb at 3 a.m. And to this day, recounting the story fills me with so much dread and embarrassment. And it's it's so cringy for me. It's a very tough story to tell.
All right. I'll leave you be. Yeah, cool. So then did you find doing that tour kind of added kind of something to your comedy resume where then you could get booked a bit easier and things like that, or?
Oh yeah, it made it easier to get paid work and MC stuff, and I saying hey, messaging clubs that he's headlined and being hey, I did a full tour with this guy, and then be yeah, sure, come over, do spots. It definitely helped. The more stuff you do, the more likely you are to get the better gigs, like
Mm-hmm.
the more stuff you can put on your resume. And now I'm fortunate enough that that's not the only thing
Yeah.
on my resume. Like, I've got other gigs I've done, other people I've worked with that I can be like, please, look, I've done this. Please, can I do your thing?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it definitely was a very good, like, he helped me get in with a lot of people and gave me a lot of advice. And yeah, I'm very grateful to Luke Kidgell.
Yeah,
in
awesome.
many ways.
And yeah, because you've done like a few other like opening spots and things like that now too, hey, for like
Yeah,
a
like,
few other like touring artists.
I opened for some shows for like Lewis Spears, which that was like huge because he was the first comedian I was like a fan of when I was like 12, 13.
Mm-hmm.
And so even like that was after Luke's tour. His shows weren't as big, but I remember being like so nervous because I was like, I remember watching his show when I'd done like 3 gigs I think at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and I went and saw his show in Brisbane, and he had an opener, and I was sitting there and I thought, I just said, I was like, one day I'll open for him.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the first guy I ever like got into.
Yeah.
One day I'll open for him. And then like a few years later, he asked me to like do these shows with him, and I was like, holy fuck, like this is the guy I like was such a fan of when I was younger. Like, this is so cool to work with him.
Yeah, that's sick.
And yeah, like a few other like online guys and stuff like that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, the Lewis Spears thing, we spoke about it before, but like I'm in a similar boat where like he was like the first comedy show I went, like the first stand-up show I went to was his.
Yeah, I think his
And-
might have been the first one I went to by myself, maybe.
Mm.
Like without my mum or anything. Like, because yeah, my mum and I would go to gigs
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But yeah, I went because I was like, this is a guy I'm a fan of, and nobody else wants to come with me, so I'll just go by myself. And yeah, it was sick. It was really cool to be like. And now I have his phone number. Like, it's,
Hell yeah.
and it's 041. Yeah, it was very cool.
And then, so after all the Kidgell stuff, it was like maybe like a year later, you started to prepare for like the solo show type stuff.
Yeah, I've done a solo. It was a while ago now.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of goal was just to do a solo before I turned 20,
Mm-hmm.
which I did. I probably should have made the goal do a good solo before I turned 20.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I did the show, and it's like, I wasn't super happy with how it went. But I'm kind of glad because now I can go, oh, well, next time,
Mm-hmm.
this is what I need to do, and this is what... Because I had like a mental breakdown before the show. I had all my notes, and I was like, this is all fucking terrible. Like, this is shit.
Yeah.
I hate all of this. And I scrapped like half my set list, and it was like, this is terrible. All right, this is the good stuff. And then I got up, and I had been on for like 10 minutes and realized I was halfway through my set, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Started doing a lot of crowd work to pad. But I think a good piece of advice to anyone doing their first hour is you probably won't have an hour, and it's fine to just do 40 minutes. It's
Yeah.
fine to just do half an hour. Like, it's...
Yeah,
If it's your
absolutely.
debut hour, you're just learning, so it's fine. Like, don't make the audience sit there while you fucking flounder and drown.
Yeah, I think like as you said, like a 40-minute show is fine. Like I did a split bill for someone in Brisbane recently with Daniel, and that he was like, oh, you guys ran a bit short. Like it was like 45 minutes and not a full hour. And I'm like, it doesn't need to be a full
I mean,
hour.
Dave Attell's new special is only 40 minutes.
Mm.
Like, fucking Cat Williams' best special is like 36 minutes. Like, it's...
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it... That being said, they get more laughs in their 40 minutes than most people would get in 2 hours.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you've said everything you need to say and you got enough laughs in the 40 minutes, like, that's fine. Like, I think we need to think of it... I don't know. It's very different how, like, we think of an hour to, like, how America thinks of an hour.
Yeah.
In how it's like, it is just a 1 hour set where we're like, this is a show. I'm doing a show. So it's like, yeah, what do you want to do? Do you want to do a show where it's like a beginning, middle, end, like there's a through line, there's, you know, a common theme? Probably doesn't have to be an hour. Like if it's, you're better off having like a tight 45, 50 minutes than trying to drag out and pad.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather just the tight stuff instead of padding.
Especially if you're doing like the yearly like festival circuit
Yeah.
and stuff too. Like,
And also, like, this is kind of the problem with Australian comedy is, like, most people, they're only writing 35 minutes a year. And then they just do festivals. So you do 10 minutes of crowd work in there. You do, 5-10 minutes of padding at the start for when people are still walking in. And then you do maybe 5 minutes of crowd work throughout the show. That's 50 minutes. Venues don't want you to do more than 50 minutes anyway.
Yeah.
Because they got another show after.
Yep.
That they need to reset the venue for. So it's like, the idea of actually doing an hour is kind of dead in Australia, I think. Like
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And when you book the venue for 60 minutes, that's 60 minutes of you being in there. That's not like you on stage. That you have to take into account, like, are the crowd going to be late and things like that too, and like getting people in and out. So you kind of have to have that 10-minute of like a grace period. So that's why it's like more like a 50-minute show for sure.
Yeah, that would be like a big piece of advice to anyone writing their first hour is it's like, it probably doesn't have, you don't have to have like 60 minutes of jokes.
Yeah.
But also like stand by your material. Like, it's funny. People bought tickets to see you do what you think is funny.
Yeah.
And have fun. Like just relax into it.
Yeah, I think that's what I'd struggle with like doing a solo show too, is that I find the longer I've been doing it, the older jokes, I'm like, I don't give a shit about that anymore. But that's still...
That stuff's funny.
Yeah.
Still is funny, so do it in your hour. Like, you can't just do the stuff you're working on right now in your
exactly,
hour. Like,
yeah.
it's the stuff you wrote this week. Like,
yeah, exactly. And that's the stuff you have to kind of keep in mind. It's like, okay, you're not gonna do everything. Like all your jokes you might not love anymore, but you just kind of have to back what you have.
Yeah, pretty
as
much.
well. So
if it's getting laughs, like you just gotta hope that it'll get laughs when you do your hour. Like it's that's all it is. But also, like for a lot of people, an hour I don't think should be the goal. Like it's like kind of why do you want to do that hour? Do you want to sell tickets and tour and stuff, or do you have like a thing you want to present, or like why do you want to do an hour? Like what do you get out of it? You know what I mean? Like it's yeah.
So what was what was your mindset behind like doing like your first kind of solo show?
Well, the big thing was like I really want to do one before I turn 20. Like that, I thought I'd be very proud of that. And I just thought I had this interesting perspective of like kind of being a teenager and becoming an adult while doing stand-up. And like trying to have these funny perspectives on these things that like everyone's done, everyone can relate to. And which is like a premise for a show I still kind of stand by and I'm quite proud of. But I wish I had just stuck to my guns and done the show that I wrote and not the show that I frantically reassembled at a table at Good Chat Comedy Club. An hour before the show. Like that was such a dumb idea.
So were you still choosing to like do crowd work over like some of the material that you dumped? Is it like you said you were like trying to pad for time?
I dumped it. I ended up like, man, it's like I don't really. It was ages ago now.
Yeah,
it was so long.
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago.
But yeah, I dumped material and then was like, well, I'll do crowd work for 5 minutes here, and then that should get me back on track. And then I'd do a joke and be like, maybe a bit more crowd work just to get me back, just so that when I do that joke, it is at an hour. And I think I ended up doing like 45. But really, I should have only done like 30. Like it's like I don't know. I'm like pretty good at crowd work, so the crowd work all went well. Like I didn't realize everyone said they enjoyed it I don't think I like actually bombed. I just know that I could have done better if I was in a better headspace,
Yeah.
which is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. But I think doing the hour shows and like even doing like the way I'm doing it at the moment is doing like the split bill. So
Yeah.
started with the 15 each and then going up to like the 20 to 25-ish each. And then I think it's kind of cool to hit those little milestones.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because I guess eventually, like if you want to keep doing comedy, you kind of, I guess the dream is to like eventually tour and stuff.
Yeah, to just tour and do theatres and stuff like that.
Yeah. Or even
Yeah.
just do the festival circuit and stuff like that too. So
just to sell tickets off your own name kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah, that is definitely the end goal, I think, for most comedians. Like,
yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah. Do you have any like goals that you're aiming towards at the moment, like after having done like that show? And
I think a big goal for me at the moment is to just enjoy, like, start loving comedy again.
Mhm.
Because it got to a point where I went full-time for the first time in September. I was, like, just a full-time comedian. Like, I didn't have another job. And I was doing that through to January. But then I was just like, oh, I'm not loving it as much when it's like, if you're not funny, you don't pay rent. And I was like, oh, like, I'm really not having as much fun because it's like, this is work. And so I'm kind of like trying to just get back to enjoying doing stuff, like taking risks and having fun, because it's like when it is your livelihood, at least for me, I find it harder to take risks and be silly when it's like, I need to get booked again. Like, I cannot afford to not.
yeah.
And so, yeah, now I'm kind of trying to be like, well, I've got like a good rapport with these people, with these bookers, have a bit of fun, be silly. Like, it should be fine. Like, that's like a big goal, is to like really just like have fun doing stand up. This year is kind of the big main goal, I think.
Yeah, cool. Sweet.
I think that's more fulfilling. Forever it was always like, do this club, do that spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, this year the focus has been like, just have fun doing stand-up and do different shit and try new stuff. And eventually, like, those gigs I want to do that I haven't been able to do yet will come. Like, it's fine. I don't need to rush. Like, I can stop and enjoy it for a little bit, I think.
Yeah, when I first started here, I remember like stressing of like, oh, like my goals were like, I want to do like sit down or blah blah, like each like certain gig or whatever. But it's like, and someone very early on was like, don't have like gigs and stuff as like your goal, because it is like, how can you set that as like, it's just like how do you measure how to even get that? Like,
yeah, and also like so many gigs, you just need a message to get it.
yeah, yeah, then you get
It's
it.
like, I did it.
Yeah.
I sent an email. It's like, cool, bro.
Yeah, yeah, sick.
Anyone can get booked the first time. Like, it's, yeah. I don't know, goals can be like very interesting. I think it's very important to set goals for yourself, but kind of understand again, like, what does that goal mean and why is that your goal? I think is important.
Do you have any advice for like kind of new, fresh comedians like starting out in the...
Just like, don't be a dickhead. Like, go do your best to be funny. Be nice. When you're chatting, don't like try and be the funniest guy. Like, that can often like get kind of annoying when it's like there's a new guy there. And it's like, that does seem very cliquey and mean, but it's like everyone kind of goes through it. It's like, yeah, just like be a good hang. You'll get like, if you're funny and you're a good hang, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, just relax, have fun. When you're starting out, don't think of it as like your career. Like, you're doing it because it's fun. You're allowed to just have a hobby.
Yeah.
Comedy can just be your hobby. Like, that's fine. And I think that's like, you know, Stephen Head. Have you seen him? He's like
yeah.
so funny. And I've only met him like once. I don't think he has any intention of like being a full-time comedian.
No,
and he's like a crusher.
yeah.
He's so good, and he just like does gigs whenever he wants, and it's like because he has fun. He's like
Yeah, I
it's
think
his
he's
hobby.
been doing it for a long time too, like 20 years or something.
Has he? Fuck.
I swear it was something. I've been told something like that. It was like
I have no idea. Like I said, I've only because he's got kids and stuff, so he only gigs like on the school holidays and things like that. But yeah, everyone is like, oh, that guy's a crusher, and it doesn't seem like it's his intention for that to be his job. Like he enjoys it. He has fun. So just when you're starting out, just have fun. Like don't think of it as your job. If it's getting serious and it's looking good, then sure, do that. But
yeah, I think because when I started out, a lot of people are, oh, is this going to be your career? I'm like, I'm just kind of just hitting little goals as I go.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm just kind of like, oh, this is a new thing I haven't done before. Like, oh, I haven't done a 10-minute spot before. Like, when you're so early on, there's so much you have, like, so many, like, little things that you haven't even hit yet. So, I don't know. But then at the same time, I guess, like, the people that, it's like you kind of have to have a mentality of, like, I'm going to fucking, be famous, or like a little bit of delusion I feel like is essential to an extent.
A sprinkle of delusion will get you further. If you believe you can do those good things. Yeah, but I don't know. I think when you're starting out, like, just focus on having fun, making your joke, being funny.
Yeah.
Working on your material. Get like a good vibe. You see these people who like are getting up and doing a different thing every night.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but the thing you did last night bombed, and you didn't.
Yeah,
you got like a little laugh.
Yeah.
Why don't you try and expand on that? Like, why are you just getting up every night and bombing? Like, what are you getting out of this? This is like very self-fulfilling, I think, when people just get up night after night and just bomb off different stuff. And it's like, the point of comedy is to be funny. Why are you not trying to be funny? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I have seen a few people kind of turn themselves around, like even a bit recently, like kind of just starting to focus on just tightening that 1.5 instead of like they're doing different material every gig.
That'll like get you so far. Like if you only really need like 10 to do pro rooms, right?
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes. So if you get like like the best 10 you can do, that'll be better than having like an average 15 or like 5 very mediocre 5-minute sets. If you have a 10 that kills everywhere, like that's so much more valuable than 20 minutes of average shit. Like you're better off, I think, personally honing in the beginning, like really narrowing in and building something so rock solid and strong that you can take anywhere.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it's more valuable.
Yeah. It is tricky to also at the same time get caught up in like, you don't want to be the person that's doing the same 5 for like too long true, as well. Yeah. But I think, it is essential to just try and get something tight at all.
It is difficult
in the beginning.
To like make sure you're still having fun when you're doing the same set, but that's where workshopping and tweaking and it's like, if you do a joke, however many times and it crushes all those times and you can't think of a way to make it funnier, then it's probably done for now.
Yeah.
You can probably put it to the side and work on something else. And then in 3 months, do it. And then you might get a new tag while you're doing it on stage or something like that. But yeah, I personally think having just like a very solid set is more important than heaps of mediocre shit.
Yeah. And on that, I guess, like, what do you know, like, what your worst bomb is?
Oh, brother. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll give you 2 stories. The first one is like a funnier story. This was like, is this year 12? I think it was year 12. Year 12 or year 11. And it was the talent show at school. And so I'd been doing stand-up for like a year now. I had done stand-up the year before. Everyone loved it. I was like, let's go. Round 2, baby. And I get up, and there was a lot of like murmuring of like, oh, this guy does stand up. Like he actually does stand up. Like I think this is going to be really good. And I get up and I do this joke I was doing at the time about how I accidentally created the KKK.
Mhm.
That's like the premise of the joke. And it starts with going, I was friends with this Aboriginal kid when I was in year 2. And I say that line, I open with this. Fucking hell, what an idiot. I open with that, and the whole crowd's like, oh. And I thought, I've hooked him, and just kept going with the joke. And it's like, the joke is essentially this Aboriginal kid was like, do you like white people? And I'm like, fucking, yeah, what? Yeah, I guess. What are you talking about? And he tells me that he hates them. And then I'm like, oh, we got to do something about this. This hatred of other people just because of the colour of their skin, that's fucked. I think we got to start a club. And then I like explain the KKK through the lens of like a 7-year-old of like, we can come dressed in our favourite costumes and we can have bonfires and like we can talk about how much we love being white, and it's like a support group. Like that's the idea of the bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm doing this bit and it is bombing. It is like, there are like kids heckling and being like, you're fucking racist and stuff like this. And at no point was I like, let's pivot. I was like, double down. And just kept bombing. And I just see something out of the corner of my eyes. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I look over and it's the curtain being shut. I was like, oh no. So that's one. That's like a funny story. The other one, not as funny. I was doing Last Night on Earth, which is a gig in Southport in the Gold Coast. It was November 2022.
Fuck, it's burned in.
Yeah, it's in there. And I'd had like just a rough week. Like my girlfriend and I had broken up prior, and it was like there was a lot of stuff building off that, and like there was just a lot of shit. Anyway, but I was like, oh, but I always love doing that gig on Thursday, so that'll be fun. You know, I've had a real rough week, a brutal week. I got this gig though, that'll be fun. All will be well when I do that gig. So this is 2023, my apologies. And so I get up there, and it's a 10-minute spot, and I get halfway through my set, and I check my time to see my watch to see how I'm doing for time, and I've been on for like 3 minutes. And I'm like, that's weird. How have I done 5 minutes of material in 2-3 minutes? What's going on? And then I realised, oh, nobody's laughed yet.
Oh.
I haven't had to stop for laughter. I'm just kind of reciting material because I haven't had to pause for laughs.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that happened, I became conscious of the bomb. And so then I go from like, blah, 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 to like, you know when like you're like, you're like you go to like the shops and you like you're at the shop, like I'm doing that, like I'm stuttering and I'm like really bumbling and fumbling, and it's gone bad. And I remember the one laugh I got, which I ended on, was I start a joke and this guy in the front row just goes, he didn't say it to me, but I overheard him say it to his friend. He goes, oh, just tell a knock-knock joke. And that made me very mad.
Yeah.
And I went, yeah, all right, bro, knock-knock. And he goes, what? I said, you wanted a knock-knock joke. Here we go, knock-knock. And he goes, who's there? And I went, kill yourself, you stupid cunt. And that got a laugh. And I went, I've had enough. And I put the mic in the stand and I went and I sat with the comics. And Michael Cho was there. And he just goes, man, that was rough. And I went, yeah, I'm going to go sit outside, I think. And I went and I sat on the garden beds. I sat there for like a minute. I was like, I'm going to go sit in my car. And I sat in my car and I cried for, I think, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck? What are you doing? This is the thing you're meant to be good at. Like, you didn't go to uni for this shit. What the fuck was that? Like, it was bad. Yeah, I don't know how long I was there for, but I know it was long enough that Cho went on after me. So the MC cleaned up. Cho did 10. There was a break and the MC went on. By the time I went back inside, sorry, the headliner was on.
Yeah.
So that's probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes in my car, just like, what the fuck? What happened there? Come on, man, you're better than this.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's probably the worst I've ever bombed. Where I was just like, that was like a life-altering bomb.
Fuck.
That was like, oh man, something's not good right now.
Jesus.
Things are not well.
And that's why, that's why you're trying to find where to have fun, like trying to focus on having fun in comedy.
Yeah, that's probably a big part of it. Man, I had a good bomb a few months ago. This was my first gig after I quit my job, and I was like, I'm just gonna be a comedian. It's the first. Like, I was booked for other stuff, but this was the first gig I did. It was this venue in Toowoomba that does musical bingo. Mm-hmm. But their gimmick is they get like a drag queen to host it, and people buy tickets to go see a drag queen. And it's like, I've been to it. It's so much fun. It's like super gay and like camp and everything. And like their drag queen cancelled, and they couldn't get another one in. And they knew me as a guy who can like host and riff and banter. And they were like, hey, how quickly can you get to Toowoomba? And I was like, I can be there in like 2 hours. And they're like, how much would you charge to host bingo for us tonight? And I was like, I thought about how much, and I added a bit more. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, probably this much. And then I hear a voice in the background be like, tell him $50 more than I just said. I was like, you got yourself a deal. And so I like went to Toowoomba, and I get there, and I'm like, I say to the manager, I was like, they all know like a drag queen's not going to be here, right? Like they've been prepped that like a young straight stand-up comedian is going to be there, not a drag queen. And he's like, oh, we put a thing on our story, but it should be fine, bro. Don't worry about it. Oh. And I was like, oh, fuck, I don't know, bro. Like, this might be an issue. And I get up to host, and I can tell that they're like, what the fuck? And I kind of riff off how, like, this isn't what you want, and I'm sorry.
Just constantly shouting, I'm an ally. I'm
I'm one of you. I like Lana Del Rey. All right? I listen to Hosier. I'm one of you guys. And so I'm like, I'm doing well. I can tell that they're disappointed, but they're like, all right, fine. And the thing with this gig is the drag queen does a couple of rounds of bingo and then does like a 10-minute drag performance. And so in the break, I go over to the promoter, and I'm like, hey, bro, you don't want me to do stand-up, right? Because they've come here for drag. They don't want to see my stand-up. And he was like, no, I think you should, bro. Like, they want to. Like, they'll be grateful that they're getting something. And I was like, man, I really think we shouldn't do stand-up. Like, I don't think it'll go well. And then he offered to pay me more money, and I was like, you have a deal, brother. Yeah. And so I go and I do the second round of bingo, and it goes fine. And I'm like, all right, guys, normally the drag queen would do a performance now. I'm not a drag queen. I'm a comedian. I can do like 10 minutes of stand-up for you, but I understand if that's not what you want. So this is like kind of your chance to leave. Like, thank you very much. I'm going to do some stand-up now. If you're not interested, which I understand why you would not be, feel free to leave. And nobody leaves. And I'm like, oh, this might actually be really fun. This might be really good. I've got like 2 hours of rapport with this crowd. Let's go. And so I'm like, I do a whole thing of like walking off stage and playing a walk-on song and like pretending it's my first time on stage. And I do my first joke and it goes okay. I do my second joke and it kind of falls apart. By my third joke, nobody's paying attention. People are like on their phones, they're chatting. There was a local band there who I'm mates with, and I know all the staff at this bar. So they're the only people really paying attention. And I was like, I've fucking started off this set pandering to these people, this like very woke, like lefty private school crowd, and I'm bombing because I pant. No. Fuck you. I bomb on my own terms. And so I start doing dark gear, stuff I know they'll hate. I'm looking around, I'm seeing people like start paying attention because I'm talking about just horrible shit. And now I'm like, all right, I'm having fun now. Like, now I'm getting reactions. And like, now it's, everybody's hating it, but all the boyfriends who got dragged along are loving it. And like the bartenders are all loving it. And my mates up the front are loving it. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm bombing to 80 people, but I'm crushing to 10. So I'm just going to play to these 10 people. And it was like the most fun I've ever had bombing. And I just went, I got to my 10, the 10 finished, and I just stopped like halfway through whatever I was saying. Because I was like, I'm not going over. I don't. I've done what I need to.
I've made the money.
Because paid stuff, I think it's important. It's okay to bomb. It's not okay to not do your time.
Yeah.
If you're getting paid to do a certain amount,
Yep.
you got to do that time.
Yeah.
So I'll do the 10.
Yeah. 10.
We agreed I would do 10. We never agreed I would crush.
Yeah. You're being paid for your time, not to be funny.
Yeah, I told you that this was a bad investment.
Yeah.
I told you they wouldn't like me. They've come for something else. Like, that's not... And so it hits 10. And I just stop. And I just look at this crowd of, like, some people loving it, some people hating it. And I just, like, laughed, like, at them. And I just went, I still get paid. And just, like, put the mic down, walked straight off, got my jacket and my bag, went up to the promoter, got my cash, and I was like, do stand-up. They'll love stand-up. And he's like, bro, I'm sorry. I was like, yeah, I'm going to leave before any of them have a chance to talk to me. I'm going to get the fuck out of here.
Oh, yeah, I love those bombs, though, where you starts like, you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to live it, start having fun.
Yeah, I think that's, like, the best thing you can do when you're bombing is, like, I think it's an old Patrice O'Neill quote where he's like, you can either, when you're bombing, you can, like, what is it? Yeah, I think he said it. I might just be making this up. You can, like, pander to the audience and keep doing what's bombing and... No, yeah, you can keep doing what's bombing and get nothing. You can pander to the audience and hate yourself. Or you can say, fuck it, and bomb on your own terms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like... Sometimes that's... You can, like, actually have fun. And that can turn it around. Just going, like, all right, 180. Let's do something else completely. This isn't working.
Yeah.
So, who cares? Let's try this. Like, maybe this gets them. Because what I'm doing isn't getting them. They've already decided they don't enjoy it. They're not going to come around to it. So let's just try a different thing completely. And it's like, yeah, start taking risks. Do silly shit. Do weird shit that you wouldn't normally do. Because it's like, you're already bombing. What, you're going to bomb while you're bombing? You bombed. Who cares?
Yeah. It's a good chance to kind of practice, like, just being, like, kind of just being more in the moment on stage. And I'm starting to get there a little bit, I think.
And when you're, like, bombing, you start looking around for anyone who's laughing.
Yeah.
You're like, that person likes me.
Yeah.
So that'll do. Like, that's enough to, like, you're so fucking in tune with the room when you're bombing like that. Like, it's a very beautiful moment, I think.
Have you done the Mill?
No.
Yeah, I did the Mill like 2 weeks ago, and it's like one of those gigs where it's like, it's a hotel restaurant, and they don't know.
It's a comedy ambush.
Yeah, it's comedy ambush, and there's just old people. There's like two old couples. So, and like, I was just playing to Josh Catino. Like, I was just trying to make him. So I'd be like, I'd do a joke and be like, have you guys been to, like, I'd kind of like do a little thing referring to the jokes. I'd be like, oh, have you guys been to JB Hi-Fi? Or like, have you played Tony Hawk to these old people that are like, don't give a fuck? And I'm kind of looking at Josh to like, and smirking to see if he's laughing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun when you go, well, these people don't like me, but maybe my friends will.
Yeah.
Maybe I can make my friends laugh. Fuck, that's brutal. When you're like bombing and you're not in that mindset of like, let's just make the comics laugh. Let's just make it a good time for my mates. When you're not in that, you're still trying to get the audience. And you say something and the comics laugh and you're like, fuck. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Nothing is more... And even just at like some decent gigs, nothing is more brutal where like the crowd doesn't laugh. Then you hear haha from the where the comedians. I'm like, you motherfuckers. I always acknowledge that because even that's just funny. Like
showing that you're in the room.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, comedians laugh, so that meant it went bad.
Never doing that again. Yeah, like if I think about the hardest times I've ever laughed at a gig, it's never at like a well-crafted joke.
Yeah,
because a well-crafted, like beautifully punched up, tagged joke, like that's original. I'm going, fuck, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
You're trying to dissect it too.
Yeah, I'm like, that's wow. Like, I'm in awe.
Yeah.
The funniest thing you'll ever see is, like, Greg Larson getting up and going, I'm Squidsy McGee, the king of crowd work. Did you see this?
No.
Oh, this was on Ben Hunter's, like, character show. He got up and he was like, Squidsy McGee, king of crowd work here. And he'd point at someone and he'd be like, what do you do for work? And they're like, I work in an office. And he was like, work in an office? Like on a computer? They're like, yeah. And he goes, what are you doing on that computer? Watching pornos? Wank, 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 wank. And just every person, Squidsy McGee, king of crowd work. What do you do for work? Say what they do. Bring it back to a computer. What are you doing on that computer? Watching pornos? Wank, 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 wank. Like, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That will make me fucking howl. The hardest I've laughed at a gig recently was Cody Grimsey, mid-set, reached into his pocket and started eating chips.
Yeah.
Like, just salt and vinegar crisps. Screaming. I was scream laughing. I was like, what the fuck is he doing? That is so funny.
Yeah.
And he's got very well-written jokes
Yeah.
that crush, that I'll watch and go, that's good. But him eating chips out of his pocket is the funniest thing I've ever seen. That and, like, watching a good personal friend of mine get nothing.
Yeah.
Doing a new bit that's a bit dark, maybe, something a bit outside of their comfort zone, and get nothing, I will be on the floor.
Yeah.
That is so much funnier than anything you could do. Like, but not to the audience, which is who you're trying to sell tickets to. Like, what's the hardest you've bombed?
Hardest I've bombed. Just trying to think. Of something I kind of haven't said. I did a gig at Holy Moly once.
The, like, golf place.
Yeah, the golf place, because I knew someone there that worked there. It was just actually, it was like a friend's younger brother. He was like, oh, you do stand-up, don't you? And he's like, and then I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, tell me a joke. I'll give you a beer. And usually, like, that's the first time I've ever been like, all right, I'll do one on the spot right now. I'll do it for a beer. And it's like, no. Pointing to, like, the DJ podium. And I'm like... Fuck you.
That's awesome.
And so, like, literally there's people, like, fucking pause. So the DJ pauses the music and they're like, we're introducing a special guest. And I was like, I could do 5 minutes of this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell a singular joke.
Okay, good.
So even though, like, I feel like it probably would have been better if I kind of stuck around and maybe built that up. But I was like, I'm just going to do one joke for that beer and leave. Because I was like, this is awful idea, but this is a very good story.
It's a very good story, yeah.
And like, so people are like pausing their golf games and looking, and like, I'm up. It's like a 2-level. It's the one in the valley. So like, I'm seeing people. I'm bombing to 2 levels of people. And I'm seeing, like, like
a theatre with the balcony?
Yeah, so I've done a theatre shit. No, so, like, yeah, people are like, they're like, and I'm like, and of course I'm doing the joke about beating up old people as well. So, like, yeah, that was a bit of fun. But, I've also, like, bombed at, like, a matinee, in Yapoon, in like a theater restaurant type thing.
Oh, okay.
And that was, yeah, probably that was like so bad that I walked off stage laughing. I was like, that was ridiculous. What the fuck? And like, yeah. So, I don't know. I've had like we've all had a few bumps. They're the ones that come to mind for me. So,
yeah, I don't know. I think I have those gigs where like I did really well and I'm proud and I hold those like close to my heart. But
yeah.
The like biblical bombs, they're the best to be like, look at this.
Yeah, what a story.
This is a brutal one.
Boy.
This is like on the Gold Coast. I got there late. Michael Cho was on. He was on first. And I walk in while he's on bombing. I catch the second half of his 5. He gets off, I get up. I'm pretty strong when I start. Like it was kind of like they were just happy he was gone. And I was like, fuck, that's weird because he's quite good. That's weird that he was bombing that hard. Like, what happened? Then I go and I look over and there's a big table in the corner, and 1 in 3 of the people on the table are just on their phones. And I point that out. And then this one guy on the table was like, oh, we're paying attention. I was like, thanks, bro. And I start talking to him. And he's giving like really awkward answers. And he's like not super quick on responding and stuff like that. And then I just went, who is this you're here with? Are they your carers? And that got nothing.
Yeah.
I went, oh, that's weird. And then I pointed at another girl at the table and I go, what do you do for work? She goes, disability support. And I went, oh, fuck.
Oh, no.
And then I realised, yeah, they're all like neurodivergent people here with their support workers. And I was like, oh my God, that's why they're on their phones, because they're really good people who have bought their clients out to enjoy comedy, and like they didn't pay, they just got to come in, so they're just on their phones because they don't want to watch comedy, they're just here to watch. I was like, fuck. And then I bombed for the rest of my set. And then I get off and realise what happened was Michael did basically the same thing. And I got off and I was like, nobody wanted to fucking warn me? And they're like, well, you don't have eyes? I was like, all right, bro. Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah. This isn't a bomb, but this is a fun... I've already told you this story, but it was... I did Sunny Coast.
Oh, man. I told my parents about this. Like, this is so funny.
Jack Knight has said to me he has not laughed that hard at all this year. So when I told both of you guys...
Yeah. For context, we were at a party.
Yeah.
And we were talking about like getting recognised.
It's so funny. Yeah, yeah.
And I genuinely think in my 6 years of doing stand-up, that is a top 10 riff of all time. That was so... I've never been so viscerally happy with other comics. It was so funny. Go on, please.
Okay, so... Because it's one of those things I said, I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, this is kind of relevant. I'm going to say it. And I thought it was kind of... I didn't realise quite how... Yeah, so basically, I was at Sunny Coast. I did an open mic, and there was two guys from the crowd that kind of come up to me afterwards, and they're also looking at doing open mics and things, but they were like, oh yeah, we recognize you from Good Chat. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, like I haven't done Good Chat in a while. And they're like, oh, we saw you watching Harry Jun's show. So
it's still good.
It still holds up. So I got recognized, and they're like, they actually specifically said from sitting at the front.
Oh, man.
They even knew where, like, because I was like, it was one of those shows where, like, you know, it was a bit of a quieter night. So I was like, oh, I'll help fill the room. So I sat up right at the front. You know, sometimes you have to do that. You have to do that duty. We'll have to do it sometimes.
If it's someone you don't know who doesn't know you, then like, yeah, sure, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I get that.
But yeah, I just love how I got recognised for that. Not actually performing, but yeah, just watching a show. Yeah,
that's like, I mean, like, oh man, I've seen you on Instagram. Yeah, you commented on one of Chappelle's pictures once. Like,
yeah,
so funny. Yeah, I was having dinner with my parents, and I was telling them the story, and Mum laughed, and Dad didn't really, because Dad's Iraqi, like English is his second language, and he just like kind of wasn't paying attention. And I was like, "Did you hear the story?" And he's like, "Oh, you got recognised." And I was like, "No," and I like explained it, and my dad's like a very serious guy, and he laughed so hard, like you broke Abdullah, and he was like, that means he's not famous. I was like, not at all. So funny, man. Yeah. That's great. That's something out of Seinfeld. Like,
yeah, Jack is like, don't tell anyone this. And I'm like, no, I'm going to tell. This is so
funny.
Yeah, it's just what, yeah, you just have to be like, oh, it's funny. It happened. So, yeah, that's
such a good story. And it's like, I wish there was a way to do it as stand-up.
Yeah, because I was like, I was like, is there and Jack's like, no, only comics are going to.
I was like, yeah, probably not, brother.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's something you could give a go. Like,
because I think maybe where it gets funny is like doing, like how you said, like it's like being at some, like where you can kind of compare it to other situations.
Yeah, I think make it a bigger comedian and they saw you in a theatre or something. Oh, we saw you in a theatre. You're like, oh, fuck yeah, cool. Like, yeah, you were front row at Matt Rife. You're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, man, I have no idea, but Godspeed to you, brother. I hope you figure it out.
Thanks, man. I'll workshop it.
Yeah, please. So funny.
Yeah. So what's next for you actually like starting to like run a room now, or
yeah,
do you want to talk about that, or
it's just like it's more just a hang, really. Like we're just putting on gigs to hang. Like you can come to Mansfield Tavern at 6:30 every Thursday if you want.
Yeah, if it's specifically free. Next I don't know the date. What's the... I don't know.
The one you're doing?
The one... I'm on one next week.
I don't know. Josh does the booking because I don't want to deal with messaging people. So
yeah, that's fair.
Just do the other stuff.
Yeah, sick. Well, the one the day after this comes out, come along. Yeah, sure. I'll be there.
Great.
Yeah, come to Mansfield Tavern.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of this annoying thing where it's like, I don't really want to be known as a booker.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, money's also great though. So... this kind of just fell into our lap, and we're like, sure, we'll run it better than a lot of other people will, especially some of the other people who it probably would have gone to. We would run it better than them, and like it'll be a better environment and stuff like that. So we're like, yeah, we'll do it for a little while, and we'll see if it's like really just not worth the time. Then we'll just give it to someone else. But I mean, we've done one and it was fine.
Cool. So you're saying that I can't, when doing the description for this, be like, with Sammy Al-Badri, Brisbane booker,
no,
Brisbane promoter.
I'll kill you. And I know where you live now. So
yeah. Actually, on the Jack Knight thing, I shared on Instagram today, but one time I bombed at a gig he was emceeing. So he told the room my address. He told the crowd where I lived. He's like, oh, he lives on this street. Not going to tell you. I'm just not going to tell you the number, but you'll find it.
If you just walk up and down long enough, you'll see him leave.
Yeah, you'll see him.
Can't stay in there forever.
Yeah, he's like, there's not much to steal, but...
Fuck, 90 is so funny.
Yeah, he's so good. Where can people find you?
At Sammy 5 names on literally anything with a search bar. SAMMY, the number 5. Names.
Sick.
And there I am. Please follow.
Sweet.
I don't know. New solo coming soon, hopefully. Podcast coming soon. Sitcom, maybe.
Sitcom?
Coming soon, yeah.
Yeah?
Don't want to say too much, but...
Wait, really? Are you doing a bit, or...?
No, yeah, really. I need to, like, finish writing it, but I've got a pitch. I have a meeting with a production company to pitch it.
That's sick.
If not, I'll just do it myself, and it won't look as nice, but will be as funny. But
awesome. Well, if you need any Seinfeld-esque scenarios...
I've got one. Getting recognised, yeah. Very good.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
No worries.
Very fun.
Thanks for coming on. Cheers.